A lot of people who end up in deep subconscious work already know their patterns, and that's usually the frustrating part. They know they overthink, they know they pull away when relationships start to get serious, and they know they keep rebuilding the same life with slightly different aesthetics and calling it a new beginning. Some of them can explain their childhood in extreme detail and still repeat the same emotional cycle within a couple of days without catching it until afterwards. So eventually the question changes from, why am I like this? And instead becomes, why does the pattern keep executing after my conscious mind already understands it? I started paying closer attention to that gap about 7 years ago, and this was because I kept noticing a strange pattern in people who were intelligent, self-aware, deeply into psychology, spirituality, self-development, or whatever version of the search they happened to be on. Now, this provided a lot of insight, but very little interruption into the actual mechanism. It's like the conscious mind would have a breakthrough, then the nervous system would nod politely, and then the underlying program would drag the person right back towards whatever felt familiar, even when what felt familiar was quietly destroying their life. And that contradiction became impossible for me to ignore. Your conscious mind, the part reading books, setting goals, trying to evolve, going to therapy, or listening to podcasts at 1:30 in the morning because your life is quietly falling apart, that part of you drives a surprisingly small percentage of your actual behavior. And that's roughly 5%. Most of the deeper system underneath was formed much earlier. This is before you knew what safety felt like, before you understood love, and before you had any real say in the emotional environment that was shaping your nervous system response. And once those patterns get reinforced deeply enough, they do not feel like programming. They begin to feel like personality traits, and that's where people get trapped. This is because the analytical mind usually arrives after a reaction has already happened. It's like a confused intern showing up with a flashlight while the deeper ingrained system has already made the decision. It already chose the familiar relationship. It already generated the resistance. It already started pulling away from the opportunity, or it already translated fear into logic. So people end up in these strange internal splits where the conscious mind wants one life and then the old neurological patterns and the body keeps organizing itself around something else, usually something you're exhausted from repeating. What I built over the years is a systematic way to close that gap, so the patterns become visible while they're happening instead of seeing them only after the damage is already done. The emotional gravity towards familiar pain, the internal negotiations you don't even realize you're having, the exhaustion that comes from performing an identity or a persona that stopped fitting years ago but still feels safer than change. Most people never see those mechanisms in the moment the mechanism is active. They only see the consequences afterward and call it fate, or bad luck, or that's just who I am. But once the mechanism becomes visible in real time, something changes. The automatic quality starts breaking apart, and suddenly there's a small space between the reaction and the person having the reaction. And inside that space is usually the first real choice that the person has had in years.
Hello to everyone, I am Daniela from Italy, and I just want to share with you my experience with Trevor. Working with Trevor has allowed me to repair my relationship with my father, with whom I had cut off contact about 1 year ago. I have completed several projects that were difficult for me to start, such as renovating an old family home, changing a job that no longer satisfied me, or finding the financial resources for my trip to Japan last October. But most of all, it has allowed me to get back into the game in the sentimental field. I will say that the best is yet to come, but I'm already super satisfied, of course. After learning with Trevor's techniques, my suggestion is be careful about everything you imagine, because there is a great chance that it will become reality.
Hello, Chad here from Boise, Idaho. I highly recommend working with Trevor. I took part in his sub-architect program that took place over the course of several weeks. At this point in my life, I'm just looking to understand myself more deeply and understand the programs and scripts that are often running in the background that I might not be aware of, but that definitely affect my day-to-day experience as a human. Going through this program was highly transformative. I felt like Trevor helped equip me with a lot of skills and tools to help me regulate my own nervous system, as well as keep me more often in the driver's seat of my own life. So I cannot recommend working with Trevor highly enough. So if you're considering working with him, please do. You will not regret it.
Hi there, I'm Molly. I am a yoga teacher and an Ayurvedic practitioner. And I'm also the wellness manager for a beautiful wellness resort here in Sri Lanka. And I would love to share with you a little bit about my experience working with Trevor, which I feel is largely how I ended up here, doing my dream job at this time in my life. So I reached out to Trevor about 2 years ago. I saw what he was posting online, and at the time I was struggling with some addictive behavior, and that's what I originally made contact with him about. I was a little confused why we were talking so much about money and abundance and life purpose and relationship. I thought I had just come for this one thing. Well, lo and behold, this was all that was behind the stagnation that I was feeling in my life. Of course, addictions are just a symptom, right? And I knew that, but I was just really trying to solve this one problem. And I was taken into this journey of self-discovery, of reawakening my purpose that I knew was there, but was kind of stifled. My gifts, improving my relationship to how I feel about money and abundance and self-worth. And there's just so much I could say about my journey of working with Trevor and how much my life has improved, how much discovery and awakening has basically been propelled. I've been on this journey of awakening for a long time, but I'd say it's like the fast track. And I love how he talks about what would be challenges or obstacles being gateways. And I was just presented with a gateway after gateway after gateway, and the door, I would just walk through it. I've been working with him for like one-on-one guidance, and he is amazing. I have never worked with somebody that is such a supportive guide, also like a friend, who can speak in all these wisdom traditions, the non-dual and the grounded reality and nutrition and fitness and that kind of thing. And then the far out understanding of like the wisdom traditions and seeing things in such a way that most people are not understanding how to see things. So for somebody who has studied so much spirituality and done so much self-work, Trevor has just taken it to the next level for me. And he is absolutely my favorite person to talk with and receive guidance from. Our journey continues, and I cannot recommend him enough. Please, please, please give this a shot, especially if you have already done a lot of the work and a lot of the self-study and the spiritual study, and you want somebody that's top-notch. And also, if you want to change your life through NRT and through self-hypnosis, give it a shot.
Hi, I'm Kendra Kay, and I started working with Trevor in 2022. Kind of when my life imploded, I had recognized that I was making choices based off of what everybody else wanted for me or said was good for me, rather than what I knew intuitively. When we began the process, he sussed out my subconscious and decided noticed that I was having issues with trust, really trusting my intuition, which made sense. I was having a bad relationship with my intuition. At least that's how it felt at the time. I was adventurous and wild, and I moved myself to New York City, and that was to pursue an opera career. You know, it made sense. I was singing opera. I wanted to be on stage. Let's just keep going with this. Everybody was telling me what a fantastic voice I had. There was always something that I was rebelling against in the industry. And since then, I've been able to do the hardest work I've ever done with my subconscious. I went and faced my deepest fears, the inner child things. I know a lot of people who keep running and running from home, but I went home and I faced that. Through the work with Trevor, I was really able to start seeing how this life is a game that we are playing against ourselves, and how to use intuition to find the cheat codes in a regard, but also to enjoy it along the way. Because when you start breaking into the subconscious this way, there are lots of surprises, fun little surprises. And I would send Trevor messages of me falling apart, like just absolutely falling apart. And every time I would send him those messages, he would respond with, "This is great news." And it started reprogramming, like his support, how supportive he was, started reprogramming my subconscious to be like, okay, it really is okay to swing, to have these mood swings. Like, they're a sign, they're an indicator, they're helping us see what's not working, but also what needs to be resolved, and giving us an opportunity to resolve it. The work with Trevor was something I chased and I very much wanted to do. I wouldn't say it was easy, I have to be honest, but it was absolutely worth it, because now I know myself better and I'm able to live from that beautiful, happy, sweet inner child place of who I am, rather than the scared, logical adult that's always thinking about scarcity and things like that. I'm able to take bigger risks and live with a more open heart, which is one of Trevor's biggest things. You know, he talks about heart opening all the time. And he helped me to feel trusting enough to live my life that way, to live my life with an open heart, and to follow my intuition no matter how zany. The journey's not over, but what I would say is I live now, like, if the fear comes up, I view it very differently. It's like a roller coaster ride now, where it's not a scary fear, it's more like, yay, fear, kind of thing, because I now understand how the game works. And the last thing I'll say is, he would send me this quote regularly: "It is better to live your own life imperfectly than to live another's life perfectly." It really becomes fun, it becomes a game, it becomes entertaining. You become the director, writer, star of your own film, your own movie, and that's how you end up living life, like you're the main character. I'm so grateful that Trevor has been and is still a part of this journey for me. He's one of the kindest as well as hardworking people I've ever known. Thank you, Trevor.
I worked privately with a small number of people in a 12-week mentorship built around daily support, weekly calls, and a personalized, completely customized subconscious blueprint that identifies unconscious themes, where friction originates in your psyche, where distortions are occurring, and it reveals directionality while immediately revealing actions and corrections. The blueprint identifies the specific behavioral architecture your brain and nervous system built around experiences you endured before you had the chance to even evaluate them. Within the program, we address that one-to-one daily as I teach you a new somatic technique to learn every week to help you regulate and integrate. I also have a growing library of courses, audits, and subconscious reprogramming tools inside the Subconscious Store for people who want to begin independently. If anything I've talked about in this video feels a little too familiar, DM the word breakthrough to this account and I'll tell you what stands out first.